All right, it's finally time. It's what a lot of you have been waiting on. A lot of you have been asking me about it in the comments section, email, Twitter, everywhere. Really, Lou, when are the prediction videos going to start? Well, they're going to start today. Up first, the Tennessee Vols. Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and too, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of these preview and prediction videos that are coming up over the next several weeks. We're gonna do these videos every single day from now to the start of the season, which of course this year is August 24th with the quote-unquote week 0. Handful of games that day, of course, capped off with the big Florida versus Miami game. So tons of preview and prediction videos coming up. You guys know how this works if you were here last offseason, but I go team by team, put the schedule up on the screen. I pick every single game, win or loss, for a ton of teams. There'll be some days where I probably do even 2 videos. So there's going to be a ton of these preview and prediction videos coming up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. All right, here we go. Tennessee up today. And the way I'm picking the order of these videos is I am letting all of the Patreon members pick a team, and I'm going to make sure I do all the Patreon members first and get their suggestions out of the way. Then I'll move on to suggestions from other places, the comment section here, email, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case may be. If you're not on the Uncle Lou Patreon page and you want to sign up over there, just click the link in the description of this video that says support the channel. It'll take you over to the Patreon page and you get yourself set up. I really appreciate all you guys who have joined up over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. I wish I could do more for you guys. But Dane M, this video is for you, sir. He requested a Tennessee preview and prediction video, so we're going to kick things off today with the Vols. All right, we'll briefly recap what happened with Tennessee last year. Jeremy Pruitt's first year, he comes in, they go 5-7. How did that compare to what I predicted Tennessee to do last year? Just to give you an idea how far off I was, I'll put the ending screen of the 2018 Uncle Lou Tennessee preview and prediction up on the screen right now, and you can see how I did. All right, I had them at 5-7, so I had the record right. I swapped Auburn and Vandy, though. Of course, I had Tennessee losing on the road at Auburn. I actually had Tennessee beating Vandy, and of course, that worked out the other way around. Tennessee got a big road win over a ranked Auburn team last year, but then finished up the season with another disappointing loss to in-state rival Vandy, finishing at 5-7. What's the consensus for Tennessee looking ahead to 2019? Well, if you look online or like these sports books that put out these win-loss totals, things like that, most places you look have Tennessee at a win-loss total of 6.5. Say, well, how can you win 6.5 games? Well, you can't. These are for betting purposes, so you know about half the people think Tennessee is going to win 7 games, and about half the people think they're going to win 6 games. There are preview and predictions around all over the internet you can find that have Tennessee winning anywhere from 5 games to 8 or 9. A few people even saying 10 games with a bowl win. We'll see. Now, the schedule for Tennessee, and I'm going to put it up on the screen in a minute, but let's just sort of gloss over it real quick. Yeah, 4 winnable non-con games, in my opinion. I could see Tennessee winning all 4 of those games. You have 8 home games this year. That's a bit, that's a positive. The more games you can play at home, obviously, the better off you are, especially in the SEC where it tends to be pretty tough to play in opposing teams' stadiums. 2 bye weeks. Everybody's got 2 bye weeks this year, of course. You have 1 bye week before the Georgia game. I think that's a benefit. So you play 4 games, then you get a bye week before you host Georgia, one of your bigger games of the year against one of the toughest teams on your schedule. Probably a good idea to have a bye week there. I like the way that sets up. And then you have your second bye week late in the season, which again, I like that in general. And it comes between 2 SEC road games. So another good place, in my opinion, to have a bye week. Like I mentioned, tough to play on the road in the SEC. Since you have a bye week between 2 of your SEC road games late in the season, that means you don't have back-to-back road games at any point during the season. This is the only time you would have back-to-back road games, but you have the bye week in between them. An optimistic view of Tennessee. If you're a Tennessee fan or a homer, or maybe you just think Tennessee is going to have a great year this year, what needs to happen? you'd have to beat Vandy at home. I don't see a way when this season ends that you could look back on 2019 and consider it any type of success for Tennessee if they can't beat Vandy. You got to flip this around with the in-state rival, Vanderbilt. Now, historically, of course, Tennessee has owned Vanderbilt. A lot of these games haven't even been close. Tennessee has a huge series lead on them, but that, of course, has not been the case lately. Vandy has won the last few games in this series. They've won 4 of the last 6. Before anybody starts really taking Tennessee seriously, I think, in terms of competing to win any types of divisions or conference titles or anything like that, you got to turn around what's going on between you and Vandy. You've got to start winning these games at the end of the year against Vanderbilt. When you look at the schedule, you play Mississippi State and South Carolina. Can you split those games? I think that would be something you need to do. You could win both, obviously, but let's look over the last few seasons of Tennessee. You could lose both. I think at the end of the season, if we look back and you had a win over Vandy and you split these games between Mississippi State and South Carolina, very good chance you had a successful season. And then number 3, you got to win one of those 2 road games at the end of the year. You get the bye week in between them, but you play at Kentucky, who of course you surprisingly beat last year. And then you have the bye week, and you play at Mizzou, who beat you last year. Tough to win on the road. Can you win one of those 2 games? Again, you could win both. I get that. This isn't a best case, worst case scenario video, though. We've got to actually pick winners and losers here. I think at the end of the season, if you look back and you say, okay, we beat Vandy, we split against Mississippi State and South Carolina, and we won one of those 2 road games. I think if those 3 things happen, you'll probably hit the over on that Vegas win total of 6.5. You'll be bowl eligible. Is that Tennessee's ultimate goal, to be bowl eligible? No, but I think you would look back on the 2019 season if all these things happen and say, okay, that was a pretty successful season. If these things don't happen, I think the opposite would be true. You're going to say, well, we didn't really get much better. Let's sort of just look at what you got coming back here. Now, last year you were dead last in the SEC in yards per game. Got to fix that. You're never going to get where you want to go in today's college football if you can't move the ball up and down the field. This does a lot of things. It gets you points, for one. Keeps the other team's offense off the field, which is a benefit for your defense. You cannot be finishing dead last in the SEC in yards per game. You got to get that turned around. Your offensive line, one of the worst in America last year. I do a superlative type video at the end of every season where I hand out like made up awards or whatever to different players or teams. And if you guys remember, I gave Jarrett Garantano my toughest player award last year. This guy spent a lot of time last season on his back running for his life. Several occasions I saw this guy get hit, and I remember looking at the TV going, he's not getting up from that. Every single time he got up. I can remember a few occasions, I think, where he did have to go out for a couple of plays, but I don't think he missed any significant time. One of the toughest players in the SEC. And given the fact that the offensive line was that bad, he rarely had time to throw. He actually had a pretty good season. He only had, I think, 3 interceptions last year, so very efficient when he does throw the ball, when he is given time. But the offensive line got to play a lot better. The guy just can't be running for his life all season again. Now, the good news is you get 4 starters back. So you'll be way more experienced than you were last season. But is the talent level there? We'll find out. I think you would have had 5 starters back, but I think one of your linemen transferred out somewhere, Southern Cal or something maybe. I don't really remember. But 4 of the 5 you got coming back, right? T. Martin comes in as an offensive coach. Can he help Garantano improve his passing ability? Maybe. We'll see. Of course, he's a Tennessee guy, led them to a national title back in the 90s. He comes in to help out on the offensive side of the ball. We'll see what effect he can have on the passing game there at Tennessee. And you get Jim Chaney as offensive coordinator. Now, he did a great job at Georgia. I'm not sure what Tennessee fans are. I'm not sure what your expectations are for Chaney at Tennessee. I don't see Tennessee getting the 40 or 45 points a game that Chaney was getting for Georgia over the last couple of years because there's just too big of a talent differential in my opinion. That's not a knock against Tennessee. That's not what this video is for. But if you're being honest with yourself, Georgia just has more pieces to work with offensively than Tennessee does, in my opinion. That doesn't mean Jim Chaney can't have a huge positive impact on the offense. Of course he can. I just don't think you're going to see the 40 or 45 per game. Can you get closer to 30 or 35 per game? I think that would be considered a huge success if you're able to do that. And don't finish, like we mentioned before, dead last in the SEC in yards. Chaney likes quarterbacks to get rid of the ball quick anyway. That will help the offensive line situation if Garantano is able to get the ball out of his hands quickly. And can you open up some more running lanes for some of your running backs? And speaking of running backs, you get Ty Chandler back. This guy's a pretty good running back. Now, he didn't have a whole lot of touchdowns last year. I think he had 6 or 7 touchdowns, but he averaged over 6 yards per carry. And with an offensive line that was that bad, that's pretty good. So if he can take a step forward behind what you have to hope will be an improved offensive line, then I like your running back situation. I like your quarterback situation. And you've got some big, tall, athletic, talented receivers. Marquez Callaway, Jawan Jennings. I mean, the pieces are there to have a good year offensively. It all hinges on the offensive line. You know, especially in the SEC, but really anywhere you look in Power 5 or big-time football, it's hard to be much better than what you are on the lines of scrimmage. And it all starts and stops, especially in the SEC, with the lines of scrimmage. You got to get better play out of the offensive line. If that can happen, then I think Tennessee's offense will be light years ahead of what we saw last year. All right, and over on the defensive side of the ball, a similar scenario. My biggest concern or question mark about Tennessee on the defensive side of the ball is defensive line. You're going to be very inexperienced along your defensive line. Tennessee didn't have any players drafted last year, but they did lose some to graduation off of that defense. So the defensive line, some talent there, but very inexperienced, and probably the biggest question mark on the entire team, in my opinion, is that defensive line and how well it can play. Bring in transfer Aubrey Solomon. If he can get cleared, if his waiver can go through, and I did look that up this morning, and all I can find about Aubrey Solomon's waiver is that Tennessee is still waiting to hear something. So if there's some news out there that I'm unaware of yet or don't know about, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below, but I haven't heard that it's been approved, and I can't find anywhere that it's been denied. Still a wait and see thing is all I'm able to find this morning as I look it up. Same thing for D'Angelo Gibbs, a defensive back that transfers in from the University of Georgia. It's a wait and see thing on both of those guys right now. Again, if you have some information, if you're watching this video and you know something that I don't know, please let me know in the comment section down below. But Aubrey Solomon sort of played a second string role for Michigan the last couple of years, but they've had NFL defensive lines. Aubrey Solomon was a 5-star coming out of high school. He's a guy I wanted really, really bad at the University of Georgia. Came down to Georgia and Michigan. He chose Michigan. Of course, now he transfers down to Tennessee. He could potentially be your best defensive lineman. We'll see if he gets cleared to play. Now, the linebackers, I think, are the strength of your team. You get those guys back. They played pretty good last year, led by Daniel Batuli, probably the best player on defense, honestly. At least last year he was, in terms of production and things like that. But with Batuli, Taylor, and Ignat, if I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Pretty good linebackers there. Really good linebackers there. You probably have, in terms of how that stacks up against the rest of the SEC, you have a top 5 linebacking group in the SEC at least, and you probably make the argument it could be a little higher than that. Defensive backs, Nigel Warrior. Is this guy going to live up to the hype? Now, this guy, I think he's a senior now. When he came in as a freshman, he was one of the most highly recruited players you had signed, and people had huge expectations for this guy. And at times, he's lived up to that, but he's been way too inconsistent. I can remember reading articles during the season last year of him missing a bunch of tackles, blown assignments, that kind of thing. So he needs to get it together. He could potentially be one of your best players on defense. He hasn't lived up to that hype yet, but in terms of potential, he probably has the most potential of almost anybody on your defense. He's got to play a lot better. DBs, you got a couple of sophomores. They got a lot of experience last year, so you got to think they're going to improve this year. I mean, I don't think people trust Jeremy Pruitt on the defense, right? I mean, I think especially the secondary. He was, of course, a secondary coach and then a defensive coordinator, considered an elite defensive mind. You have some question marks here, but I think people are more confident in Pruitt's ability as a head coach to consistently have a pretty good defense than they are an offense. And that's not a knock on Pruitt. Anytime you hire a defensive head coach, most of the questions tend to center around how's the offense going to go. Chaney helps. T. Martin hopefully will help. We'll see what kind of steps they take forward this year. But that's sort of just a brief look of where they're at heading into the year. All right, let's put the schedule up on the screen now. You guys know how we do this. I'm going to go through it pretty much game by game. I'm going to give you a winner and a loser for every single game, and then I'm going to come up, of course, with a final record. Let me start here. I think there's 2 games you win no matter what. Half your team could miss these games. I don't see any way possible that you lose. That's week 1, Georgia State, and week 3, Chattanooga. regardless of where you think Tennessee's talent level is at, it's way ahead of these two teams. You get them both at home. They're non-conference games against lower classification schools. Tennessee is winning those games, period. There's two games I just don't think you can win. The Alabama game, you play them there. It's been a long time since you beat them. There's no point in going over all that. I know this is a big rivalry game for Tennessee and Alabama, and I know Tennessee wants to get back to the point of competing and beating Alabama. And there's nothing that says you can't or won't do that. I just don't think it'll happen this year. Alabama returns a ton of talent on offense. Like Jeremy Pruitt, no one's ever going to question a Nick Saban defense. You play them there. I just don't see a way this year Tennessee gets good enough, fast enough to compete with an Alabama. Same for Georgia. I know I'm a Georgia fan. People are going to say I'm only saying that because I'm a homer. Dominated you the last 2 years, 41-0 last time we played in Neyland, 38-12 last year. Now we do have to go to Knoxville to play you again this year, and you are coming off a bye week. I just don't think talent-wise Tennessee can match up with Georgia right now. I just don't think they do. There's been some knocks on Kirby and his in-game coaching ability and things like that, and a lot of the reasons for a lot of that is inexperience. It's his first head coaching job, right? He's been there 3 years. This will be his fourth. Well, this is Pruitt's second year. He's probably going to have some of those same type of issues with sort of a learning on the go, learning on the job type of thing as a head coach. It's not a knock against Tennessee. I just don't think you have the horses this year to compete with Georgia. You had a really good recruiting class. Let's see if Pruitt can put together another couple of good classes in a row and try to narrow that talent gap that exists right now between Georgia and Tennessee. And obviously things would change, but right now I'd have to give you wins over Georgia State and Chattanooga, but losses against Bama and Georgia. Okay, so let's look through the rest of the schedule, and we'll just run through it in order here. I gave you the win at home against Georgia State. Week 2, you're home against BYU. This is considered a Power 5 team by some people. My feelings on BYU are very well known and documented. It's not the point of this video for me to get in with all the reasons I hate BYU, but they're a trash program, a trash school, and you should get that win. They haven't been very good the last couple of years. They were 4-9 a couple of years ago, 7-6 I think last year. Now they did have a couple of wins last year that you didn't see coming, right? Didn't they beat Wisconsin on the road at Wisconsin last year? Don't let that happen to you this year. I don't think Tennessee is in a position right now to where they would really be caught overlooking anybody. But don't get caught overlooking BYU. I think you'll get a win here against BYU. It's at home. You'll get a big win, I think, week 1. Week 2, you'll come out a little bit tougher competition in BYU, but no reason why you shouldn't win that game. So I've got you starting out 2-0. Week 3, of course, I already gave you the win at home against Chattanooga. Again, nothing against Chattanooga. They're a lower classification school. They've got no business competing with any SEC team, whether that be the worst or the best SEC team. It doesn't matter. Tennessee should run away with that game. That'll put you at 3-0. Heading into one of your biggest rivalry games, one of the biggest games of the year, every year in the SEC, especially in the East. Your first road game, your first SEC game, which happens, this is the case almost every year in this rivalry, on the road at Florida. Florida's got a lot of issues in the offseason. They got some more developing right now. If you haven't heard the news, you will hear it soon. It looks like a couple of Florida players are going to be suspended heading into the Miami game with some things involving believe it or not, Derek Mason's daughter, who's a lacrosse player at the University of Florida. Anyway, all the details aren't out or known or released about that situation yet, so we'll just wait to see how that trickles out over the next couple of days. But it looks like probably some people sitting out that Miami game. That won't affect Florida this late into the season, though. We're probably looking at the most one-game suspensions there for a couple of players. This is going to be a tough game. It's on the road. I know it's Dan Mullen's second year at Florida and Pruitt's second year at Tennessee. Dan Mullen's got a lot more experience, spending, was it 8 years as a head coach in the SEC in the Western Division at Mississippi State. He's used to these big games. I think Florida, talent-wise, is still a couple of steps ahead of Tennessee, especially defensively. Offensively, Florida's got a lot of playmakers at wide receiver. And Felipe Franks, do I think Felipe Franks is an elite college quarterback? No. But if you look at what he did last year, his numbers are almost identical to Jake Fromm's. Now, you can say what you want about the type of offense Georgia was running or whatever. Point is, you look at the stats, they're eerily similar. Almost 3,000 yards passing, a good touchdown to interception ratio. Felipe Franks type of guy, can run around a little bit if he needs to. I can't see you winning this game on the road at Florida. I'm not super high on Florida this year. A lot of people have them competing for the East, maybe even going 11-1, something like that, 12-0. I don't see that happening for Florida. I just think this is a tough spot here. Your first road game of the year on the road at Florida. Rivalry game. I would give Tennessee a chance in this game. I would. I wouldn't say Tennessee has no chance in this game. And, you know, when I did the best case, worst case scenario, I gave Tennessee some credit for possibly winning this game when we looked at the best case. In terms of making an actual win-loss prediction, right now, I would have to go with Florida. I just don't think they're at a level yet, Tennessee that is, to win this game on the road. This game was in Tennessee this year 2 under Pruitt with all that offensive talent coming back. I think I would be more inclined to lean Tennessee's way. But on the road here in the swamp, I'm going to have to go with Florida and give Tennessee the loss. All right, that takes you into your first bye week at 3-1. Maybe not what all Tennessee fans are hoping for, but better than what a lot of years past have been for Tennessee. 3-1, heading into your bye week. Come out of that home game against Georgia. I already talked about that. I have to give you a loss there. Again, I'm not saying Tennessee has no chance to win this game. Look, any team has a chance to win any game on its schedule. We see weird things happen in college football every single week of the season. Is it possible one of those weird things this week of the college football season is Tennessee pulling off an upset at home over Georgia? Yes, it's possible. But again, this isn't a best case, worst case thing. I've got to make an actual prediction on every one of these games. And not a whole lot of people outside of diehard Tennessee fans are giving Tennessee much of a chance in this game. Again, that doesn't mean you can't win. It just means I'm not a complete idiot for picking you to lose. I'm not picking you to lose because I'm a Georgia fan. Almost everyone, regardless of what team they're a fan of, would be going with Georgia right now in this game. Same said for me. I have you taking your second loss of the season, this one at home to Georgia. Okay, and then I think you have a critical 4-game stretch here. At home against Mississippi State, on the road at Bama, home against South Carolina, and home against UAB. I've made the comment this offseason that I would give UAB more of a chance over Tennessee than I would BYU. I still think that's the case. However, I think you beat UAB. Now, they had a great year last year. No one will deny that. 11-3. They won Conference USA. They won a bowl game. Miraculous, considering the fact that 3 seasons ago, they didn't even have a football team, right? Their football team basically got disbanded 4 or 5 years ago. They didn't have a team at all for several years. They came back in 2017. Their first year back, 2017, they go 8-5. Last year, they go 11-3. Problem is, they lose a lot of pieces off of that team. A lot of pieces. I don't think they're going to have enough to replace that talent that they lost. They brought in a lot of JUCOs there when they first came back after their program had been gone for a while. They brought in a lot of juniors who only had 2 years of eligibility left, 17 and 18. So those people are now gone. They're bringing in more JUCOs to try to replace those. I just don't think it's going to be enough to beat a Tennessee. So I've got you a win here at home against UAB. Already gave you the loss at Bama. Sort of explained my reasoning there. So that puts you at 1-1 in that 4-game stretch. Mississippi State and South Carolina, I said in the beginning, when you look back on this season to try to determine if it was a successful season for Tennessee, I think Tennessee needs to win at least one of these 2 games between Mississippi State and South Carolina. I think Mississippi State is heading in the wrong direction. I don't like the coach they have. He was a disappointment last year to me, given the talent that was left over from Mullen. I think they should have had a better year than what they had. They didn't. I'm afraid that trend will continue for Mississippi State. I've got you beating Mississippi State at home. I'm giving you the win there. South Carolina, I'm giving you a loss. Listen, there's a couple of games here where I really considered going both ways, and this is one of them. Now, there are some games later in the schedule that we'll get to in a minute that I came down on your side when I could easily have gone the other way. And there are plenty of legitimate reasons for me to go the other way on some of these games later in the season. I gave you the loss to South Carolina. Beat Will Muschamp. You want me to pick you to beat South Carolina? Beat Will Muschamp. Tennessee is winless against Will Muschamp. You go back and you look at Will Muschamp's time at Florida, which is widely considered by anybody to be an abject failure and a disaster. He was terrible at Florida, but he beat Tennessee every single time. Takes a year off with defensive job at Auburn, then of course hired at South Carolina back in the 2016 season. So he's been there 3 seasons now, 16, 17, and 18. You've yet to beat him at South Carolina. He's 3-0 against you. So 3-0 against you at South Carolina, 3-0 against you, or was it 4-0? I can't remember. Anyway, he's undefeated against you, whether it was Florida or South Carolina. You want me to start picking you to beat South Carolina as long as they have Will Muschamp? You're going to have to beat them once first. I'm sorry. They've got some talent returning on offense, too, at the quarterback and the wide receiver position. They need help at running back. Offensive line, I would put it slightly ahead of Tennessee's, but not by much. Defensively, they've recruited better defensively than they have offensively, in my opinion. Talent-wise, they may be a little ahead of Tennessee on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe you make up for that with Pruitt versus Muschamp, but Muschamp's considered a pretty good defensive mind, too. So I've got you splitting between Mississippi State and South Carolina with a win over the Bulldogs and a loss at home to the Gamecocks. Okay, so I've got you 5-4 through your first 9 games. That leaves you 3 games to become bowl eligible, which in my opinion is the absolute floor and baseline for any type of measure of success at Tennessee this season. If this plays out the way I have it so far, and you're sitting at 5-4 with 3 games to go, you have got to win one of these last 3 games or the season is a total failure. You cannot have another 5-win season. There will be no way to justify it, okay? The final 3 games, at Kentucky, at Missouri, home against Vandy. I gave you a win on the road against Kentucky. You beat them last year in a game nobody picked you to win. Kentucky was hot last year, the best team they've had in 40 or 50 years. Everybody and their brother picked Tennessee to win that game. You came out and handled business and got one of your biggest wins of the year last year for sure at home against Kentucky. Now, I don't think Kentucky's fallen off the map this year like a lot of people think. Yes, they lose Benny Snell at running back and Josh Allen on defense, 2 of the best players they've had in a long, long time. I like what Kentucky has coming back. I think Kentucky's going to be a pretty good team. So I'm not picking you to win this game necessarily because I think Kentucky's going to be bad. I'm picking Tennessee to win this game because I think Tennessee potentially is a better team than Kentucky right now. And I can't see you losing this game. I think you're going to win. You'll get that win at UAB the week before. After rebounding from a couple of losses to Bama and South Carolina, I think you get your 2 straight wins over UAB and on the road at Kentucky. All right, then your last bye week of the year, which like I mentioned, I like having this bye week here. A road game, bye week, road game. So you're avoiding having to play on the road in the SEC 2 weeks in a row. You come out, you got to play at Missouri. I'm giving you a loss there. Missouri has really pounded you the last couple of years. Kelly Bryant comes in this year at quarterback. Is he an elite passer of the football? No. Can he sling it like Drew Lock could the last couple of years from Missouri? No. But he gives them something totally different that they didn't have with Drew Lock, and that's his legs. Kelly Bryant can run around, very athletic quarterback. Now, I don't think he's going to Missouri to run the ball 20 times a game. He's going to Missouri to prove he can throw the ball, hopefully to get drafted, right? So I don't expect Missouri to change their offense around that much just because they lost a pocket passer in Drew Lock and they're bringing in a dual threat quarterback in Kelly Bryant. I think Missouri's offense is going to be very similar to what you saw the last couple of years under Drew Lock. The difference being, I don't think Kelly Bryant can make some of the throws Drew Lock made, but he can give them some things they didn't have, which is the ability to scramble, extend the pocket, and take off running when need be. You got to play them there. I think they beat you in probably a close game. I'm going to give Missouri the win against you there. All right, and then you finish up at home against in-state rival Vandy. We talked a lot about this at the beginning of the video. A must-win game for Tennessee, in my opinion. I think you get it done. I think you beat Vanderbilt. I know they've sort of had your number the last few years, and they beat you 4 out of the last 6. Vanderbilt's got some pieces returning too, but they lose a quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks that they've had recently. He's gone. Defensively, they got some question marks. I do like Keyshawn Vaughn over on offense. They've got a really good receiver. They've got a good tight end. So they've got some pieces there. I just feel like this has to stop at some point with Tennessee and Vandy. I picked you guys to beat Vandy last year, and I was wrong. I'm going to roll the dice again this year. I'm going to go with the Vols and give you a win here at Vandy. That puts you at 7-5. I know a lot of Tennessee fans are thinking 8 wins, possibly 9 with a bowl win, and I will be the first to admit it's very possible that Tennessee goes 8-4 this year. very possible, and it would not surprise me at all. There's a couple of losses I have on here that could easily go Tennessee's way. There's also a win or two that potentially could turn into losses. So if I had to put like a confidence level on Tennessee going 7-5, it wouldn't be very high, but that's where I came down on. I sort of went back and forth on a couple of games, 8-4, 7-5, 8-4, 7-5. I definitely think you'll be over the 6.5 that Vegas has you for your win total. 7-5, like I said, I could see 8-4. I'm gonna come down on 7-5. If you ask me like a confidence level, how confident am I that you're gonna go 7-5 as opposed to 8-4? Not very confident. I could honestly see you going 8-4. But I think if you go 7-5 and you do the three things in the beginning that I talked about, you'll look back on this season after it's over and consider it a success and a step in the right direction. All right, that's it. The first official preview and prediction video of the 2019 season, the Tennessee Vols. Shout out again to Dane over on the Patreon page. I really appreciate not only your support, sir, but the support of everyone over on the Patreon page. Again, if you want to join up, just click the link in the description of this video that says support the channel. It'll take you over there. Appreciate you guys watching, and have a great morning.